Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome on Facebook and welcome on Zoom. Before we will properly start with our conversation, for those who joined us on Zoom, you can choose 3 different channels. You can choose the English channel in case you don't understand French. You can choose the French channel. Vous pouvez choisir le canal français que vous préfériez suivre les débats en français. And you can choose the original channel dans le cas où vous voulez suivre donc l'échange en langue originale, donc en français and in English at the same time. For those of you who are following us on Facebook, I welcome you, but in Facebook we only have the original channel option. We will start with our conversation now, and I give the floor to Christoph Schröder for his introduction.
Merci, Jonathan. Je tiens à féliciter les représentants de l'opposition bélarusse pour leur courage, leur résilience et leur détermination. Ils ont tenu bon et restent déterminés face à un adversaire beaucoup plus fort. Mais ils ont de leur côté quelque chose que la force brute ne pourra jamais vaincre. La vérité. Chers lauréats, restez forts et n'abandonnez pas votre combat. Sachez que nous sommes à vos côtés. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est avec ces mots que le président du Parlement européen, David Sassoli, a annoncé il y a une semaine la décision de décerner le prix Sakharov 2020 pour la liberté de l'esprit à l'opposition démocratique au Bélarus. L'opposition démocratique au Bélarus est représentée par le Conseil de coordination, une initiative de femmes courageuses ainsi que de figures politiques et de la société civile de premier plan. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à cette nouvelle édition du EU Talk qui vous est proposée par le bureau du Parlement européen et la représentation de la Commission européenne au Luxembourg. Ce soir, nous allons discuter de la situation au Belarus ainsi que la position de l'Union européenne avec la députée européenne Isabel Wiseler-Lima qui nous a rejoint déjà. Je devrais excuser Charles Goerens parce qu'il doit assister à une réunion de trilogue dans le cadre d'un rapport dont il est co-rapporteur, une réunion qui vient d'être ajoutée au calendrier à la dernière minute. Mais il sera remplacé, si je peux dire, par le député européen lituanien, Petras, Austrevicius, qui va nous rejoindre à mi-cheminée de l'aéroport de Bruxelles. Notre table ronde, qui n'est pas vraiment ronde, est néanmoins bien remplie. Mon collègue Jonathan Ponchon va animer le débat et va vous présenter les intervenants. Un grand merci à vous tous d'être avec nous ce soir. Vous montrez ainsi aussi votre intérêt à ce qui se passe dans notre voisinage, dans l'est de notre continent commun. Jonathan, je te passe la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Christoph Schröder. Thank you very much for the people listening to this exchange. And thank you very much to the panelists for taking part in this exchange. Christoph, you already introduced our MEPs that will be taking part in this exchange. I want to welcome also Natalia Yerashevich, who is the director of the Secretariat. Want to read activist Luxembourg. And I want to greet Lavon Marozau, who is the International Secretary, of the Belarusian National Youth Council, and who is the only participant of our physically in Belarus, and who is undergoing great personal risks, talking to us publicly. I appreciate the effort that you do and the courage of talking to us about the situation right now. Lavon, how is the situation for you in your home country right now, and also for you personally right now at the moment?
Yeah, thank you very much. Are you hear me? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much to speak today for the opportunity. I will very shortly explain it like a general situation and probably later explain some example what's going on and what happens with me and with us here in Belarus. And of course, thank you very much first of all for your support. First of all, I would like to say once again that national law doesn't work in Belarus right now. The judicial system is more like a punishment system. Murders, for now, it's minimum 6 cases. Torture, kidnapping, intimidation. This is what every free Belarusian has been living with for the 3 last months. Now in Belarus, civil society activists and young people are being judged under criminal articles. The country's authorities accuse my friends and my colleagues of organizing and preparing action that grossly violate public order. I would like to say this is complete nonsense and humiliation. Of course, we demand their freedom and immediate release. And once again, the national law doesn't work in Belarus. And I hope that the international law and international society will protect the rights of Belarusians to live in peaceful and democratic country. And what about from my perspective of view? In 2016, I worked in international university here in Minsk. And after the situation when 2 people from KGB come to me, to my own city where I was born, I lost my job in ideological reason, because I do a lot of lecture in death penalty and LGBTQ topics, and of course administration don't agree. Just for example, from my perspective of view, or from my view of human rights, just for example. And right now, 2 weeks ago, we, like National Youth Council, rather prepared our first in Belarus. In Belarus, first alternative report on youth rights and present to Human Rights Council. And 2 weeks ago, I once again explained to International Law Society, just dear colleagues, please remember that international law, human rights, it's not internal issues as if any country in Belarus too. I understand my real position because I'm right now in Belarus, and my personal opinion and my personal position don't leave the country because I want to live here. I want to live in Minsk, just for example. And of course, I understand what's going on in European Union. Of course, I know how young people live in European Union, but it's my country, and I wanted to give all best to future of my country. And when we're talking about protest here in Belarus, I just want to say it's not a revolution, it's like a moral protest. As you see from your news, from Facebook, or just for example, from another newspaper, you can see like normal people who were intelligence and who have moral principles. Of course, all of us have a fear, but every weekend and every day, our students, our workers from the factory, our medical care officers go to the street with peaceful manifestation and peaceful like values. They wanted to say true, and of course they wanted to live in peaceful country. Just to remind you that United Nations already recorded more than 50 cases of torture here in Belarus. And as you understand, for now, we don't have just one, we don't have any like investigation process for those torture in prison, which was held on 9 and 10 August here in Belarus. I was on protest on the first and the second day. I was like, I understand what's going on in the street, and understand by my personal hand or by my personal eye, what does it mean like a gas from military service when you cannot sleep more than 2 days and you need like a medical care from the hospital. And once again, just to explain, it's not revolution, it's moral protest from all peaceful citizens from whole country, as you can see from probably newspaper, and of course I just understand from my side. And just to understand, we already did, or we already have like 3 months protest, 3 months we go to the street, and for those time we have 50,000 people who was arrested. Just imagine how many people. And my personal experience, I go to the court, is if we can call the system like court system, and I understand that it seems like more circus, and of course national law doesn't work in court right now. And just imagine on the 90 or the 10 August here in Belarus, judges come to the prison and swear and was on balaclava. Just people who was arrested don't understand for which reason they was arrested and what's going on. And of course they have a fear. Just for example, when you was arrested, all your things like mobile or your computer was arrested too. If you wanted to get back or to give back all you think, you should go to the police department and ask about them. And police department say you should come back to the prison and ask again. And when people come back to the prison, they will be arrested again after torture. You should understand the situation. And of course, a lot of people was tortured, was kidnapping. And of course, we have a fear. But anyway, 3 months we go to the peaceful manifestation and wanted to change in our country. Sorry,
we can underline maybe. So I heard that my connection is pretty poor, so I try to speak as slowly as possible. Underline with what you said with some figures. Indeed.
Is it the problem from Jonathan's side? Yeah.
Pregnant women, people wearing balaclavas and going, no one knows exactly where, and being treated really badly. Thank you for giving us this.
Sorry, Jonathan, you need to rephrase again because there was a huge hack in this.
Okay, can you hear me now properly? Thank you for this indication. Yes. Okay, so I mean, I was just giving facts and figures. Over 14,000 people in Belarus detained, 350 criminal cases initiated, over 1 prison years if we have there so far, and pregnant women who are taken away from men wearing balaclava and taken to places where, you know, we can only fear what is happening to them. So thank you, Lavon, for giving us this insight. And I want to hand over to Natalia Yerashevich. I remind our audience again that you are director of the Secretariat of the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, and the civil society right now is really active in Belarus. And you are yourself a Belarusian citizen living in Brussels. How does your organization keep in touch with the civil society in Belarus? Natalia.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you very much for invitation for this event, and thank you for keeping Belarus on the agenda of the European institutions, of the Europeans. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that Sakharov Award was awarded to the group of Belarusian democratic oppositionists. So with regards to the civil society and how we are keeping in touch with the civil society in Belarus, I would say the connection is quite good. We are always in touch almost on a daily basis. However, I should admit that on Sundays, during the days of the protest marches, there is a total internet blackout in the country. So then it's extremely difficult to be in touch with people. And also when you set meetings and sometimes people are late for just a couple of minutes, and you're really starting to be very fearful of the fact that what might have happened with the person. Was he or she detained? Was he or she bitten? Something happened. So it's really a difficult situation for the people on the ground. And I'm really appreciative of the effort, of the courage, and of the resilience of the people there, because as we know, people are having their work days, then they start with volunteer work in the evening or during the weekends. And then there are also different types of activities. Okay, it can be more march of protest. It can be meetings with local communities, newly arranged local communities in the courthouses of courtyards of the big apartment buildings. It can be different type of activities. And I should say that people really emotionally are quite exhausted and often physically exhausted. Though, of course, there is a quite big wave of energy coming when people come together and they have the same cause. They are united and they do something together and they see some results. But at the same time, we are here for a marathon. It's not a short-term race. That's why it's very important to bear in mind that people are really having it difficult emotionally, so-called emotional swings. And yeah, if we talk about European response, European approach, I think it's extremely important to show the solidarity by different means, by awards, by contacts between different types of organizations. If European trade unions would be in touch with Belarusian independent trade union, or youth organization would contact youth organization in Belarus. So using all different channels, organization to organization, but also personal, I think it is extremely important now to keep the spirits high. The morale is very high with the Belarusian civil society, but we need to understand that it's a difficult situation for the whole country, and especially for those who are at the forefront and it's civil society. They are also working with the victims of the regime, so they're helping to provide medical care, legal care, finance, administration, and many other things. And of course, there is also a danger for your family, for your nearest and dearest. You never know, even people who are just walking by and not participating in the protest, that can be snatched off the street and put into the detention. So the situation, as Lavon rightly say, is just complete absence of the rule of law and lawlessness.
Natalia, I mentioned before that you are based in Brussels, and in Brussels is the heart of the European institutions. How do you lobby, if I may say, for the Belarusian civil society towards the European decision makers?
Mm-hmm. As Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, we are official stakeholder of the Eastern Partnership architecture, Eastern Partnership policy. So we are kind of recognized by European institutions and EU member states as a stakeholder in the process of formation, monitoring, and implementation of the Eastern Partnership policy. So from that position, we are talking to the decision makers from the EU institutions and EU member states, donors, organizations in Brussels. So, and definitely there are a lot of messages on all 6 countries we are working on, but on Belarus, of course, the situation is very dynamic. It changes every day. So it's very important to keep the decision makers up to date and with first-hand information and alert them on the situation. And of course, we organize meetings, we organize events, we produce research, and among our recommendations to the EU decision makers now is of course to pay attention to the civil society, to channel the support that have been provided or was planned to be provided to the governmental institutions, to channel it away from them, because it will with a very high level of probability be used for against the Belarusian population. So, and rechannel it to international organization, to Belarusian civil society, which has proven since the COVID started how it can work with the population, support the population instead of the state who does not provide the services.
Lavon, I think you wanted to add something. I saw you raise your hand, right?
No.
But anyway, before we give the word to Isabel Wiseler, I just wanted briefly to get back to you by also mentioning an anecdote. When I contacted you last week to invite you, I think 10 days ago already it is, for this exchange, you said yes, by principle, yes, why not? But right now I cannot answer because our director is persecuted, and officials or policemen are in her apartment and taking all her computers and mobile phones, and she's right now trying to flee. So this really underlines how dramatic the situation is. The country or the population of Belarus is striking right now. Can you maybe, before we hand over, explain us briefly how your life on a daily basis looks like? I mean, what are your plans for tomorrow, the day after? You plan actions, or what do you do now?
Well, it's a very difficult question, but thank you very much. Of course, we right now thinking about whole security point, what we should to do or not to do. Just for example, my position in organization, international secretary, like my job in my job description, we can find to communicate with some, we can find some moment to communicate with international organization, and just for example with you. But of course, I just understand like real situation. Of course, I have a fear, and in this reason, I don't Minsk. And probably leave the country and move to the country like for a couple of days. And to be clear, some of us already, some of my friends already leave the country in security reason, because there is, as you know, like criminal case. And from this criminal case, policemen and people without any form, and as we understand, as people from KGB come to our home with research and with investigation, and to confiscate our laptop and something like that. Me, like a lawyer, I understand from national law and from international law, I don't violate any law, because I have a freedom of speech and I wanted to live in my country. But just again, law in Belarus and Belarusian law doesn't work here in Belarus, and they do what they want. I mean, like last president or last government, better to say. And I just wanted to say, me personal, not political, and not political person. I do not my business and my activity in political sphere. I'm a lawyer and human rights defender in previous and right now. And from those perspective of you, I think that I have opportunity, I have a right to speak with you honestly and say my truth and say what I think. But of course, me personally, my colleague right now in those very dangerous position and very careful, I don't know, activities of business here in Belarus. We decide what to do and what to say. Yeah. But once again, I don't want to leave the country.
Yeah, clearly there's no rule of law in Belarus at the moment. And before I will switch to French, because I will speak to Isabel Wiseler in a second. I just read a message that our interpretation is switched. So in case you want to follow in English, you have to choose the French. And in case you want to follow the French interpretation, you have to choose the English channel. I'm sorry for that, but I'm sure you have figured that out already. Et je continuerai donc en français avec Isabel Wiseler. Donc, Lavon vient de nous dire clairement qu'il n'y a plus l'État, ou plus, bon, la question se pose, est-ce qu'il existait à un certain point au cours des dernières années, mais l'État de droit n'existe pas en Biélorussie. Je sais qu'à travers votre travail d'eurodéputé, les questions d'état de droit, bon, pas seulement en Biélorussie, mais d'un point de vue général, c'est des questions qui vous sont importantes dans votre travail d'eurodéputé. Si vous entendez ces témoignages très courageux, comme je trouve, de Lavon de Biélorussie, avec vous en tant qu'eurodéputé, mais en tant que, c'est encore si je peux dire, encore un jeune aussi, donc en tant qu'ancien prof qui instruisait la jeunesse, ça vous fait quoi?
Merci pour la parole. Permettez-moi tout d'abord, vraiment tout au premier lieu, de dire mon admiration pour les gens qui vont dans la rue et qui savent ce qu'ils risquent et qui vont quand même, et aussi pour le courage qu'ils montrent en restant alors même qu'ils sont vraiment en danger. Ça, c'était la première chose que je voulais dire. Et ensuite, je voudrais aussi, si vous le permettez, d'abord effectivement réagir à ce que tant Lavon Marozau que Natalia et Yerashevich ont dit, parce que ça me semble très important et ça me touche énormément. C'est-à-dire que nous avons promis au Parlement européen, nous avons promis, je l'ai dit dans la plénière, que nous allions garder Belarus à l'agenda, et nous l'avons fait. Et nous allons continuer à le faire. Nous sommes plusieurs députés qui sont très concernés et nous sommes concernés, nous allons continuer à le faire. C'est une promesse, on va la tenir. Donc, le prix Sakharov, je suis très contente, très fière qu'on ait ce prix Sakharov-là, et je crois que nous sommes nombreux, là aussi, à partager cette fierté. Ensuite, je voudrais dire que j'admire vraiment le courage de Lavon Marozau, ce qu'il nous a dit, et je voudrais reprendre ce qu'il a dit sur No investigation has been done. Nous avons eu, et je crois que c'est important pour vous, parce que ça vous montre l'appui que vous avez de notre part. Nous avons eu au Parlement européen, la semaine dernière, une commission qui a traité uniquement de l'impunité par rapport à ce qui se passe en Bélarus. Ça a été le sujet de la commission. C'est de cela qu'on a traité pendant 1h30, 2 heures. Seulement de cela. Et on a aussi évoqué le fait qu'au niveau du Conseil de l'Europe, il y a une volonté, le Conseil de l'Europe, il y a une volonté qu'il y ait des enquêtes. Au niveau du Parlement européen, nous avons aussi demandé à ce qu'il y ait une commission d'enquête. Ça va être très difficile pour le moment, mais il est clair que la volonté est là. Et nous avons aussi demandé à ce que les forces soient unies, puisqu'au niveau de l'ONU, il y a aussi quelque chose qui se met en marche. Et donc, il est très important que justement, ensemble, la communauté internationale, parce que vous avez à 100% raison quand vous dites que quand il s'agit des droits humains, ce n'est plus une affaire intérieure. Vous avez tout à fait raison, et c'est comme ça que nous le voyons. Je suis membre de la sous-commission des droits humains au Parlement européen, et nous le voyons exactement de cette façon, là aussi. Donc, vous savez qu'à ce niveau-là, vous avez notre appui, et vous avez de notre côté vraiment une pression pour que ça se fasse. Et je crois que ça, c'est aussi important à savoir. Est-ce que je peux encore, je sais que vous allez devoir partir, et je suis désolée, Jonathan, au fond, je n'ai pas encore tout à fait répondu à votre question, mais l'état de droit est quelque chose que nous défendons effectivement, et il n'est plus respecté d'aucune façon en Bélarus. Moi, je voulais simplement demander à Lavon Marozau s'il pouvait nous dire, puisqu'il est vraiment là-bas, on avait mis un certain nombre d'espoirs dans cette grève annoncée pour le 26, donc lundi cette semaine, et on a peu d'informations. On a quelques informations, mais elles ne sont pas de première main telles que vous pouvez nous les donner. Je crois qu'il y a eu un certain il y a eu un certain mouvement le premier jour. Il y a eu des gens dans les rues de Minsk. Je sais que beaucoup d'étudiants étaient dans la rue. On a entendu dire qu'il y avait dans les usines, c'était moins convaincant, il y avait moins que ce qu'on aurait pu espérer, mais quand même, et on sait quelle est la situation, donc dans les usines où les ouvriers sont très dépendants du pouvoir, et non pas seulement l'ouvrier lui tout seul, mais toute sa famille très souvent, donc c'est très, très difficile. Mais quel est le succès justement de cette grève dans ces quelques jours? Si je peux me permettre de vous demander de nous... quel est ce que vous savez dessus? Merci beaucoup, en tout cas.
Lavon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just waiting for translation from French. Unfortunately, I don't speak French. Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Of course, it will be like a second day. Of course, we have our manifestation on weekend, and on Monday, like a second day. There are a lot of people who go to the street, and when we're talking about student, I think so. Not I think. I'm sure more than 7 university, like student in university, do a protest in university, and a lot of teachers, a lot of academic professionals join those students, and some of rectors of the director of university, as I saw from news later today, disagree with like a minister of education, and say to those students, we are with you, and you will be like you will be a student after your protest. Is your right? Is your constitutional right? Please do what you do. Some rectors, some people from administration of universities say, when we're talking about workers and factory, there are some cases when workers do something like probably Italian manifestation, when they do your job or your business, but very, very slowly, just to show to the administration, just we disagree with those political regime. And after that, after like 5-6 p.m, by means they go to the street, and it was a lot of a lot of people, but not only here in Minsk. Normally, after 2 months, it happens in Minsk, probably in Brest and Gomel is our regional city. But on Monday was in different small cities like Lida, like Baranovich, like Babruisk, like Mogilov. And you should a little bit understand that Belarus is not like a big country, and there are some distinction between people who placed near Russia, like Mogilov or Gomel, and a city who placed near European Union, like Brest and Grodno. And on this Monday, on this weekend, people go to the street from both sides, and it's very impressive. And I hope that people understand that we can change like situation, and we can win, of course, and we can do our moral protest. And what's more, people from hospital and for like medical staff also go to the street, and people from I hope from academic sphere, from academic like not a university of academic science, something or art science, something like that. They also go to the street on Monday. Just to underline, on Monday, some people from other spheres also go to the street. It was very interesting. Yeah.
We can speak, and I think this is really the question of Isabel. So we can speak of a transversal movement. So it's not just young people, it's not just scholars, but it's all over the place, and it's also, you know, workers, young and old, and who also participate in this strike.
No. It's of course it's not only young people. Normally, it's like just what I see by my personal eyes. It's people from probably 18 till 60, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, like every day we have a women march. It's very interesting. I think it's very impressive to see here in Minsk, because not probably, but only a few years ago in Belarus we started to talk about women's rights, and right now we see like a result of those.
Yeah, and we can suppose that the real president-elect of Belarus is not the incumbent president, whose term will end on November 5th, and who is done on November 6th, not considered as a legitimate president of Belarus. I'm speaking about Aliaksandr Lukashenka, obviously, but it's Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who Isabel, you met in the European Parliament since he was in the Foreign Affairs Committee. I see that Natalia raised her hand, and I wanted to give the word to you again. But first, if you allow to share a personal story, since I was personally in Minsk over 2.5 years ago as a journalist, and I met there one of your former colleagues, Lavon, and she told me. I mean, I had the sense at that time that, you know, politics were a taboo subject in the public sphere. So people would dare speaking openly to you if you're on a face-to-face conversation, on a one-on-one conversation. But as soon as you have more people, people were really afraid. And what she told me is with the work that you do with the National Youth Council, she was also from the National Youth Council, is that they do a lot of they prepare the young people that one day when the people of Belarus will rise up and do something against this dictator, there will be people to take over and be able to carry this country to a real democracy. Natalia, that's why I wanted to give the word to you. To what respect you think is the civil society ready to lead the country once Lukashenko will be gone? And I see that the MEP Petras Austrevicius has joined us from Brussels Airport.
Hi guys, good to see you.
Great having you. I just give the floor to Natalia on the question I just asked now, and then I'll get back to you. Natalia.
Excellent, looking forward.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Just a small addition maybe about the strike of the workers. It's important to understand that they are working at the state enterprises and they are working on short-term contracts, and the labor rights in Belarus are not at all respected. So basically they are under total influence of the administration of those enterprises, and they can do with them what they want. And basically we already heard that some workers who were striking on Monday were already fired from their enterprises, and the students as well. Those who were striking on Monday, they're already expelled from their universities. So that's the situation. And in terms of the civil society, I believe that indeed the society is going through a very deep transformation, and we have not seen such a transformation for a very long time. The society and civil society was a bit apathetic, a bit apolitical, not very active. And now we see this re-energizing. People are becoming political. People are becoming interested in the fact that they can influence the change. They can be engaged. And they start to organize into these territorial communities that I mentioned already. And they're very much surprised that actually they can take decisions about the territories they are living in, that it's not illegal, that it's normal, that they can interact with the local authorities and basically propose something, how to arrange the territory where they live on. And I think there is a very big drive for an establishment of an alternative network or of formal or informal organizations that would be serving the purpose of the population. For example, now we have Belarusian Union of Writers, and it's an official, so to say, institution. But different professions are establishing really independent, informal initiatives like physicians, sportsmen. So, and this way they're trying to come together to stand for their interests. So there is this level of self-organization of the society, and instead they are doing the stuff, sometimes providing services that the public services and the state should be doing, but now it's this alternative civil societies that are doing this. And indeed, in terms of leadership, I think there is still a need to grow those leaders after the 27 years of control and oppression. But definitely we see them appearing. We know that there are already good leaders, and they have been there for quite some time now. Some of them are in prison, some of them are outside of the country, but we need to grow other leaders as well. So that's definitely needed, and people are interested now. So we really need to use the moment.
Thank you, Natalia. And maybe just to complete what you said, I'd like to quote Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who said in the European Parliament when she was there in Brussels, "We were afraid, we were sleeping, but now we have woken up." Now we'll be giving the word to Petras Austrevicius. Great that you're joining us from Brussels Airport. Let me briefly introduce you. You are a Lithuanian MEP, part of the Renew Euro group in the European Parliament, and you were the rapporteur on the resolution of the European Parliament on Belarus. You have, which I find really interesting, especially linked to what we are discussing now, you have a record as a diplomat. You were ambassador of your country, and you prepared Lithuania to the accession to the European Union. So you know, I think, really well what it means to implement the rule of law in an Eastern European country. Are you reminded to your former career right now also in your activities?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me and having an opportunity to express my views and to interact with your speakers. Well, indeed, I think my previous experience is very much useful for me in my today's capacity, in my today's dealings. And after all, you know, I mean, I come from the neighborhood of Belarus. I mean, we've been so much interlinked historically, culturally, and even the past 100 years was somehow to be next to your neighbor. You can explain many things, probably not just looking at the neighbor, but from your own experience, from so many meetings and contacts you have had with people from that country. So that's why, even coming back to your previous question, how the new generation of, let's say, democratically minded people might be grown, or where they come from. So my response is very simple one. I mean, nobody was born knowing exactly the principles of life, or I mean, your profession or your knowledge. I mean, it comes with years. So that's why I personally, I'm not afraid at all if things develop smoothly in Belarus, if this democratic transition happens, and I strongly believe in this, I'm sure, will be a good group of people, younger or older generation, ready and learning, experiencing it from their own life as well as from neighborhood. Look, how many people from Belarus are in exile, diaspora? I mean, young, bright people. I'm sure, I mean, it will be, all those vacancies will be filled with competitive, patriotic, and very, I have to admit, very willing for a new life people. I don't hear you.
Excuse me, I muted myself. We have Lavon Marozau with us, who is an activist and member of the National Youth Council in Belarus, and he has to leave us in a couple of minutes due also to the conflict. I won't go into details. Lavon, just very briefly, in one sentence or two sentences, you are now discussing or debating with two elected members of the European Parliament, with Petras Austrevicius and with Isabel Wiseler. What is the demand that you have as a Belarusian, as an activist, as a young man living in Belarus towards these elected members of the European Parliament that they should keep in mind after having heard you? Maybe in one or two sentences before you leave us, Lavon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Petras. What do you do? I know just my colleagues right now in Vilnius, and you working hard in our movement, or how to help Belarusian people. From our side, from Belarusian young people, I would like to say, just for example, me personally feel like part of European Union society, but we are not in EU. But anyway, me personally, I think that Belarusian young people have those rights like European guys, European girls, this matter. And sometimes people from European Union, some my friends who are a little bit older than me, don't understand clearly what's going on or what's happening in Belarus. But my wishes on my what I try to do, just to more broadly explain to whole people in European Union, please understand the real situation in Belarus, and please understand that Belarusian young people can be in future, probably, I don't know in which future, can be a part of European Union. We don't want to move to European Union. We have our own country. We want to live in our own country. Right now, the situation which we have, just to help your neighbor to be a democratic and to be free country. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lavon, for having been with us. Stay with us as long as you can, and thank you for having shared your perspective on the conflict right from where you are in Belarus. Petras and Isabel, I want to get back to you too. Petras, you are the rapporteur on this resolution, which was supported by a very, very large majority of the European Parliament. And the least that I can say is that this is unusual. How easy was it to get majority? And how glad are you, perhaps, well, that for this subject, what we are talking about today, well, the European Parliament stands pretty much as united as it is, as it's really rarely.
Well, indeed, you pointed out to a very important aspect, that this recommendation or report was, in fact, supported by 602 members of European Parliament, and only 44 voted against and 44 abstained. It's a bit unusual because the issue is a foreign policy, and not everybody is in line with the, let's say, mainstream or the report, draft report, which is presented. But there is an interesting aspect. You know, during the last 3 decades, and even before, Belarus was simply erased, taken away from the political map of Europe. It was like a, you know, white spot on the European map. If you've been asked some, let's say, a good year ago, I mean, what do you think as an analyst, as a journalist about the Belarus? What kind of the ideas would come to your head? I presume not much. I mean, probably you would mention, I don't know. I mean, it's a country somewhere in eastern part of Europe. Maybe affected by Chernobyl disaster. Probably you would mention Lukashenko as such, but not much in substance. I mean, by isolation, by probably even ignorance from the European Union, and for good reason probably, because we didn't see any perspective, any future, I mean, for our relationship. It was, I would say, I mean, critical engagement, but nothing more of this kind. So that's why I saw as my task to put a pretty comprehensive, report to reflect present situation and to outline some possible solutions or actions from the EU side, because I strongly believe EU has to work with Belarus. I believe in democratic transition in which we have to support, not just to be observer. And so that's why this report came out as a good kind of guidance for many members of European Parliament, as well as for many Europeans who might read this report and get a very, I would say, good impression and experience what is going on and what might happen in Belarus.
Thank you, Petras.
Thank you.
Isabel, Petras, since you joined us, I'm just letting you know we have interpretation, and also for the other people who joined us on Zoom a bit later.
Good.
So I will be speaking to Isabel in French now. I don't know if you understand French, but in case you
not everything yet.
Okay, but so in case you don't, you can choose the French. No, well, that's a mistake from our side, the technical mistake. You have to actually, which is funny, choose the English channel in case.
Yes.
No, you have to choose the French channel to have the English translation. We got mixed up there.
Oh, really?
So the French channel to have the English translation.
All right.
On with Isabel. Isabel, lors de votre intervention au Parlement européen, vous disiez que les actions de l'Union européenne ne suffisent pas, clairement. Et à l'instant, je venais de poser la question à Petras, Austrevicius, que c'était quand même, j'ai remarqué que c'était quand même exceptionnel que le Parlement européen, mais je souligne l'institution Parlement européen, était unie autour, de manière très remarquable et forte autour de cette résolution qui a été votée. Or, encore une fois, aussi pour la Biélorussie, on voit que l'institution qui bloque et qui freine un peu les actions entreprises de l'Union européenne, c'est le Conseil. Donc là, l'instance où les chefs d'État et de gouvernement sont représentés, ou au niveau aussi des ministres des Affaires étrangères. Est-ce que ça aussi, ça repose un peu en question la manière de fonctionnement de l'Union européenne, que peut-être il faut trouver vraiment partir de ce principe d'une majorité, de l'unanimité, mais plutôt d'une majorité pour pouvoir aussi avancer en termes de politique extérieure.
Tout à fait. Je crois que là, on va si je m'avance trop, on va s'écarter du sujet de la Bélarus. Mais il est vrai que le Conseil parfois paralyse une politique commune d'affaires étrangères de l'Union européenne. Et nous devons absolument agir à ce niveau pour que cela change. Je voudrais tout de même aussi revenir donc sur ce qu'on était en train de parler, c'est-à-dire cette ligne très étroite sur laquelle l'Union européenne et le Parlement européen, où on doit avancer, d'un soutien très clair à l'Union européenne sans que ce soit une ingérence qui dévierait du chemin sur lequel elle doit rester, pour que justement il n'y ait aucune ingérence d'aucun pays étranger. Bon, c'est, comment dire, disons les choses comme elles sont. La Russie, manifestement, il y a de l'ingérence. Quand nous soutenons d'une certaine façon l'opposition, on peut aussi dire qu'il y a de l'ingérence, même si elle n'est absolument pas comparable à ce que fait la Russie. Mais je crois que l'opposition en Bélarus a dit clairement qu'il faut que ce soit eux à le faire. Et que l'appui que nous devons donner, qui est absolument nécessaire, il doit être très clair. Je viens de dire tout à l'heure, je crois que Petras n'était pas encore là, j'ai parlé de la commission qu'on a eue, où on a dit que l'impunité ne devait en aucun cas s'installer, et qu'il fallait vraiment qu'il soit rendu, qu'un verdict soit rendu, que les gens qui commettent des crimes, parce que ce sont des crimes contre les manifestants, eh bien qu'ils soient punis. Donc à ce niveau-là, nous avons sûrement quelque chose à faire. Par contre, par rapport donc justement à cette ingérence politique, il faut être très prudent pour permettre cette transition démocratique, que que les personnes, que le peuple bélarusse est en train de réaliser par lui-même. Donc, notre appui sans que cette ingérence aille au-delà. Je veux d'ailleurs dire que l'un des problèmes qui nous apparaît par rapport à cette opposition, et vous avez, Natalia Yerashevich, a parlé des leaders, il y a cette problématique que Lukashenko a mis en prison ou a forcé à aller à l'étranger toutes les figures leaders de l'opposition. Mais j'ai aussi l'impression quand même qu'il y a quelque chose qui se met vraiment en place. J'ai vu que maintenant, d'ailleurs, je crois que c'est le 26 octobre, il y a eu cette anti-crise, cette administration anti-crise qui s'est mise en place avec des personnalités du Conseil de coordination, où j'ai vu Pavel Latouchko qui serait donc prêt à faire comme une administration, je ne veux pas dire un gouvernement de transition, mais on voit que l'opposition bélarusse est en train vraiment de se construire avec une leaderance qui peut permettre vraiment maintenant de faire les pas qui sont nécessaires, parce que ce dont on avait peur, c'est que cette opposition bélarusse dans la rue, qui continue à vraiment d'une manière admirable à se mobiliser toutes les semaines, et bien qu'elle n'arrive pas à démarrer la transition au niveau institutionnel parce qu'elle n'était pas assez organisée. Et je suis vraiment très contente de voir que cette organisation se met en place.
Isabelle, et justement, si vous parlez d'opposition qui s'organise dans les rues, elle s'organise pas seulement en Biélorussie, and I'll switch to English again. So the opposition is not only organized in Belarus, but there's an uprising also in other countries, within the European Union. I think we've made it clear, or the panelists have made it really clear that what we are discussing right now is not something that concerns only Belarusians, but that concerns every European or every citizen of the world, because we are talking about core values. And now I want to talk to, finally, and sorry for letting you wait for so long, Lali Maisuradze, who is an activist, Belarusian activist in Luxembourg. You organize gatherings in Luxembourg where you managed to mobilize over 200 people on several locations, which is for Luxembourg, I can tell you, not bad at all. That's good work. Why did you want to be active in Luxembourg, Lali, and how is the dynamic of these gatherings that you organize here in Luxembourg?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this talk, and I'm very honored to be part of it. Thank you for having Belarus still on the agenda after over 10 weeks of protests going on in Belarus. When it comes to Luxembourg, before everything started to be the opposition movement came raised in Belarus, I was not that much involved in politics, but I was always interested for human rights. And as we all know, the human rights in Belarus were not only violated, but also they have no protection for over 2 decades already, almost 3 decades. So when I've seen the videos and what's happening in Belarus, in my home country, so after the elections on the 9th of August, I could not keep quiet. I wanted people here in Luxembourg, where I live since over 6 years, to know about the situation and to raise the awareness of the situation and to explain people what's going on. So it's not just something political. It's not like people are, because often we will be compared to Crimea situation. It's not like people are having internal conflicts. It's just people are fighting for their rights, for their human rights. So the first gathering happened right next week after the elections and the first protest in Belarus. So far, the diaspora of Belarusian people in Luxembourg is not that big. We have about 300 to 400 people. The government of Luxembourg was very supportive for the meetings. They never had canceled and forbidden any meetings. They always accepted registration. Until now we are having some restrictions due to the Christmas market, but we will see because the Christmas market was cancelled. So there was a huge meeting with support of Baltic countries. It was on 23rd of August. It was called Freedom Way, Baltic Freedom Way, which happened in Baltic over 30 years ago. And we gathered about 200 something people on this meeting, which led, I think, to some attention, not only in Luxembourg, but also maybe in Belarus or by Belarusian authorities, because the next weekend, when we organized another meeting, we had an interesting happening. Three men came up to us with a camera saying that they came just from Belarus. They want to know what we're doing here and who we are and where we are going with the meeting which we're gathering. So we asked them to show IDs and stop filming us, which is where like typically laughing and filming the whole group and laughed. So this happening, I reported to police, to local police. And still now we are protesting, and we've been we also went to Hague, to Netherlands, to support our diaspora in there, to participate in some meetings over there. And I'm trying to raise public, to always attract some press. So it's not only in the streets, so it's also online and in newspapers. And on this Saturday, we also have a meeting, the demonstration coming. And we hope very much that this also gives us support and strength to people in Belarus who are striking every day, and they are losing their energy and physically and morally. And I also wanted to stress out.
How are your relatives doing in Belarus? How are your relatives doing right now?
Well,
right now, but how are your relatives?
Well, I have family in Belarus living still. There was a case in my family. The person was working in a governmental institution and the military force governmental institution, or almost 20 years until now. But he refused to support to be a part of this human rights violation which is happening in the streets. So he resigned on the 10th of August. Unfortunately, this was not the resignation. It turned into the case against him that he did not show up to work. So it took about a month for him to receive his resignation letter signed. And it was signed, not that he resigned, but it was signed like he was fired because he did not show up to work for months. Now the family member of mine is abroad and is settling down abroad thanks to the European Union support. There are some opportunities. And the rest of my family, his family, is still living in Belarus. As we know from today, the borders were officially closed by the government. So there are difficulties to come out now because of the COVID situation. Now the COVID is discovered in Belarus. It was not the case before.
Apparently, all of a sudden, COVID is being taken.
Yes, now it is a problem Belarus, in our country too.
Surprise, surprise. I mean, the interesting aspect about what you said is, and that's something that we don't hear too much about, is that there seems to be also a position within the police. So there's not, which is reassuring, not every policeman who is supportive of the Lukashenko regime, and there are also people dropping out. Natalia, as a final question, would that be the decisive factor in Belarus? So if one day, if the police and the military stop supporting Belarus, would that be the end of the regime?
If possible, I can go back to what Isabel mentioned about the anti-crisis formation of anti-crisis, let's say, government in exile or something like this. I also want to add that what positive also happened this week with the ultimatum of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and also strikes is that there is now more, it seems, coherence and connection between Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as a leader and the people on the streets, because it's her who kind of started the whole ultimatum initiative, and then she inspired people to go out more in bigger numbers on Sunday during the march, and also go out and strike during this week. So here we see before there were quite some analysts saying, no, they are so separate and you need to, so how do we see this? But now we really see that those two forces are somehow coming together. Of course, there is still some work to do, but that's already some positive development. And with regard to this question of cracks of the system, we see, let's say, drops of people getting out of the system, both from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from diplomats, from police, and from different spheres who are coming, who are stepping down for their position. And I think what is important here, so that these people would have, especially if they are not so, okay, for diplomats, probably it's quite, it's not such a big deal, but if the person, if the police officer who has big loans from the state, and usually they are receiving quite some benefits, and when they are leaving the service, they have to pay back a lot of money, like thousands, literally thousands of euros. So it means that for them, it's also financial difficulty. So leaving the families in debt. So it's extremely important that there are those crowdfunding platforms that are supporting the people who are resigning. And I think this kind of gives a little bit more reassurance to people who resign. Okay, not only from police, but also, for example, to striking workers, so that they know there is still some kind of alternative. And those funds are indeed, I think they are a very big deal, and there are new initiatives for cultural workers, for sportsmen. So this is proliferating, and of course, Belarusian people abroad are solidarity. People around the world are contributing. I've read recently the report that a Hungarian schoolboy donated the Hungarian amount of money in the amount of a sandwich from his school canteen. So it was also a symbolic sign, but minimal amount, but very, very pleasant news that people around the world and even the youngest are solidary with the situation in Belarus.
Natalia, thank you very much for this input, and thank you very much to all of our panelists, to Lavon Marozau, who joined us live from Belarus, to Petras Austrevicius, who's taking his plane in Brussels now soon. Thank you also to Isabel Wiseler, of course, and thank you also to our Belarusian activists in Luxembourg, Lali, Maisuradze. I think we will still be following what is happening in Belarus, and it's not the last time that we've been covering with such a conference this issue, and which, these problems which happen right here in Europe. I want to thank our team. I want to thank, of course, Christoph Schröder, Marco Jusch for making sure that all the technical aspects work and all our visuals. And I want to thank our trainees, Maxime Laval and Noémie Custos. Thank the translators, Isabel, Galère et Muriel. Merci pour votre travail, et désolé de ne pas avoir facilité la tâche avec mes problèmes techniques. And Stefan Koppelberg, acting head of the representation of the European Commission in Luxembourg. Of course, thank you to your team, who we worked with to plan this event. So thank you to Diego Falla and to Poliana Verdido, who we planned this event intensively with. Stefan, I leave the closing words up to you now.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And I join myself to all the thanks you already spoke out to the participants. I think it was a very interesting information session, and I'm very happy that we organized this together. Christoph, also, this is directed to you, as European Parliament and European Commission together. Everybody has said this and underlined it. It's so important to keep the awareness high, the level of awareness in the European Union. And by the way, this is fantastic what Lali is doing there. Very impressive, of course, to hear what Lavon had to tell us of his daily life. Isabel Wiesler said, the EP will do its best to keep Belarus on the EU agenda. As the European Commission, of course, we also have initiated some actions of simply real assistance for victims of repression and state violence, with legal assistance, medical support. There's been support for independent media, and I think 50 million euros for the health sector, for small and medium enterprises and social services. And there's a proposal now on the table on the implementation of intelligent sanctions against serious human rights violations and abuses worldwide. Once that is approved, it will provide the EU with greater flexibility to target those responsible for violations. Jonathan, you mentioned the Council. It's difficult, but I mean, we do have sanctions. I mean, I was thinking one thing, particularly when Petras was speaking. I mean, Lithuania is just on the other side of Belarus, on the other side of the border to Belarus. And there you have a fantastic example. All the countries that joined the European Union at a quite late stage, much late for my taste, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Slovenia. And I would also mention, because I was raised in Franco, Spain, which is a fascist dictatorship, like Portugal, and Greece was also an authoritarian regime. All these countries, they have gone through these processes, which were very painful. I should also mention my own country, in this case, Eastern Germany. It's a process which takes time, and it's very painful, and I think we heard a lot of evidence for that. But it's feasible, and I think this is the message of hope which you in Belarus are giving now to the world. It's feasible, and it's worth the efforts. One thing which also came to my mind when Isabel and also Natalia were speaking, opposition is getting organized. I don't know how exactly this is working, but I know very well that in Spain and also in Portugal, the opposition leaders who were working illegally in their own country, they got quite an impressive support and a very successful support from the political parties of countries who were already part of the European communities of those days. And that was also very, very effective. So thanks for this event. We had another event the other day, another EU talk on Albania. That's also countries in the Western Balkans, which are on their way. And we also have talked rule of law. And I'm seeing in all the countries I mentioned, and I won't make any exception, that rule of law is something relative. It takes time. And I think rule of law is never perfect anywhere. Of course, there's an abyss between the situation in Belarus now and most of the countries within the European Union. But we still see with the countries within the European Union that it takes time. Structures are so slow in evolving. But again, everybody has to keep the resilience, and that is something which has been honored by this Sakharov Award, which the Belarus opposition has really deserved. This resilience, the courage, it's worth the effort, and it's actually, this is the European way of doing things. Europe is built in a very, very slow and step-by-step way. But in the end, I think we're getting more resilient every day as European Union, and who knows, Belarus is Europe too. So I wish you all the best and thank everybody for participating.
Stefan, since you mentioned the rule of law, there's one country who offered us the rule of law, if I may say, after World War II. It's the United States of America. They will have very important vote coming up next week. And we will cover that, the aftermath, in Luxembourgish and in French. Isabel Wiesler, by the way, and with our MEPs also Mark Angel and Tilly Metz and Robert Harmsen from the University of Luxembourg. So I would say that's our next appointment next week, November 4th, Wednesday, 12 o'clock. We'll talk about the US elections and also about the state of the rule of law there. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for the whole team, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. And toi for Belarus.
Thank you so much.